The more time passed, the more rumours spread of him. He's not human. He's not mortal. Crocodile has always been an interesting figure in Prodigal's story, but just recently, dots were connected that point towards the possibility of him being far more significant than we previously thought. In the journals detailing Richard Van's descent into madness, it mentions that Crocodile had been helping to gather creatures to feed the Bleeding Blade. But our Sheriff Van, who is Richard Van II, was at least middle-aged, so even if we assume that Crocodile was a young man at the time of these journals being written, that would put him in around his 50s or 60s by now. Plus, if he didn't leave Van's Point at any time between the events described in the journals and now, when exactly did he have time to amass that collection of his? What if Crocodile is actually a lot older than he seems? And speaking of that collection, let's have a quick look at all of it. So first of all, just a skull. We can't read the tag, but it must be someone of some significance. If not to some area of the world, then at least to Crocodile personally. Maybe it's the first person he ever killed or something. Next along is a huge pearl on a pillow with the tag reading Oromoa. This is obviously a fake since the real Oromoa was in Crocodile's vault. Well, one of them anyway, like his second, even more secret vault. I assume he knew people would be coming after the Oromoa, so he put a fake one on display to just taunt them. Seems like the sort of thing he'd do. Next is a shell in a rock. It's a Pokemon reference. Look, not every single thing is going to have some super deep ties to the lore or have really great importance, but this next one sure does. A red crystal in the case that seems to glow ominously. It seems alive somehow. Now technically this is never confirmed, but I think we can confidently say that this is the same kind of red crystal that Siska is looking for, and that we find in the gas mines to give to Colorgrave. These crystals are surely extremely powerful, and probably very rare. Although maybe they're not that rare if Siska already has one, which her dialogue seems to imply. Maybe Crocodile just has a bunch of these stashed away somewhere and puts one on display just as a flex. Then we have the crown of the last king of Drowprail, which is apparently now a wasteland island. Did Crocodile perhaps have something to do with the island becoming a wasteland? Like he dethroned or just straight up killed the king and that's why he has the crown, and the country just kind of collapsed from there? Although it's probably more likely to be the other way around, like you don't abandon an entire island just because one guy died, even if he was the king, you'd surely just get a new king. So possibly Crocodile did something that made the citizens flee the island and that's why it no longer had a king, and Crocodile just keeps the crown as a trophy. Next to that, of course, we have Tauren's armor, which is apparently real because Tauren's soul reacts to being reunited with it. So, you know, Crocodile just has the armor of the most legendary mortal to ever exist sitting in a room above his casino in this small port town in the north. Like, the other stuff so far could be explained away with some complex backstory that doesn't involve immortality of some kind, but this is the big one. Where the hell did he get his hands on this? Like, I find it hard to believe that it was just in someone else's possession before Crocodile came along, at least no one that wasn't one of Tauren's godly allies in the War of Glass, so that makes me think maybe Crocodile has had this armor since the War of Glass, or like since Tauren was allowed to rest. We will get back to that. But next we have a necklace from the Queen of the Fae with the tag, "For services rendered for the good of all." Now we can think about this in three ways. First, Oren's comment is how did Crocodile help her when at least some of the stuff in this collection is blatantly stolen? So how do we know that this was given to Crocodile? The second is maybe it was given to Crocodile and he just benefited from helping some folks out for a change, because let's be honest, the only way he's helping anyone is if he gets something out of it. The third way is that wording, "for the good of all." It doesn't necessarily mean that it was a good thing to do at the time. It could easily be some twisted, selfish meaning of the greater good.
The greater good.
It does say Astoria is the Queen of the Fae, and Fae are not always depicted as harmless little tooth fairies. Like, a lot of mythology and folklore depict Fae as something to be protected from or warded off. So maybe this is just a bad guy helping out other bad guys because their interests aligned, but out of context it makes it look like he did a good thing. Next up are the Swords of Kiga, made of luxonite and shaderite, the latter of which, by the way, is one of the ores that you collect to reforge the Bleeding Blade. It says that they were taken from the fallen god Kiga, with god in quotes, interesting choice there, and that Kiga was a servant of hate, otherwise known as Nixian. I'm not going to do the whole "how did Crocodile get these" thing again, instead I want to focus on why Crocodile felt the need to put god in quotes there. It feels spiteful, petty even, kind of personal. I've been covering the items in this room right to left so far, but now we need to jump around a bit. In the VIP room there's a book called Fortune of Hate. The stories of hate's death are lies, woven to brighten the darkest of skies. For an age he has wandered, his malice expanding. His return was ensured, the veil no longer standing. While the storm plots and schemes, she is doomed to be spurned. Hate is among us, Nixian has returned. Hey, why is this here though? Apart from being a fairly ominous and juicy bit of lore that you'd want to make difficult to get to, why here in Crocodile's casino? Then of course there's the giant skull in the middle of the floor labelled Skull of Hate Spawn. How and why would Crocodile have this unless, and I'm sure you see where this is going by now, Crocodile is one of the other gods? Look, I'm not saying it's the only explanation, and I'm certainly not saying that it's definitely right. I'm just saying it's one that I could believe if it turned out to be true. All the clues are there. It explains why he'd have Tauren's armor, the Skull of Hate Spawn, and why he'd condescendingly refer to his fellow god with passive-aggressive quote marks, assuming he was on the side of Armadale and Tauren. Speaking to Crocodile once you've exhausted all his other dialogue, he will say this: "Did you ever take a moment to look through my collection? Over the years I've gathered all manner of curiosities. Ancient armors, weapons, and the malevolent remains of old hateful foes." Malevolent is a very specific word, one that's been associated strongly with Nixian since Cursecracker's released. It's also possible he really is just a human that somehow got to live for a very long time. Maybe he was even one of those people standing behind Armadale in the Veritas trailer. On the other hand, he may have gained immortality some other way. It could have nothing to do with hate. Like, for all we know, that fountain in the lobby is actually the Fountain of Youth, and honestly I'd believe that at this point. But realistically, I think Crocodile at least has some connections with more powerful beings, if he isn't one himself. So next we have a necklace with a cross and a blank tag. Look, I know we kind of hit a crescendo in the middle there and we still have more to go, but I want to cover everything, okay? So let's just settle down and look at the rest of these. The necklace with the blank tag I think might have something to do with Rayam, although I don't really have any proper reasons for thinking that, so not to ruin the immersion or anything, but this could just be a space filler. Do I really think that a world with this much lore needs a space filler? Of course not, and if this cabinet weren't here, the big skull wouldn't really look any more out of place in a central position, so I personally don't think that this is fully meaningless, although I can't completely rule it out. I'd give it maybe a 5% chance that it doesn't have a deeper meaning, but that's still a chance. Next is another sword, a Yoni sword, a gift from Sidian. Whether Sidian refers to a single person or a place or a group of people is unclear, because Auron focuses on the Yoni, which he comments are from the Drow. The only other things about which we know is that there's a port called Selja there where someone in Van's Point is getting shipments from, and it's a warmer place in the south, as Auron comments on this cactus in the sheriff's office that that's where something like that should be, and that it's too cold up here for these. So maybe Hugh or the late Sheriff Van had something shipped up here that they couldn't get locally. Although the only other place in the entire game that you can find cacti is, strangely enough, the Crocasino. So maybe they're Crocodile shipments, and as a matter of fact, maybe this out-of-place cactus here in the sheriff's office is because it was an attempted bribe from Crocodile. Next we have an array of trophies and relics. Okay, maybe I was wrong about the whole space filler thing. Like, these are just like, here's some stuff, and that's the stuff, so there's some space filler, okay, there's some space filling. And finally, in this room at least, we have the mounted head of a dark beast, which is a pretty appropriate Zelda reference. Now I specified that was all for this room, because deep within the depths of the back room, arguably more secure than the Oromoa, is Armadale's mask. Armadale herself says that she thought it lost, so maybe that means she lost it during the War of Glass or shortly after, and Crocodile simply came across it later. We can't know for sure, yet, but of all the things in his collection, this is possibly the most ominous. However, Crocodile collects more than just trinkets, he also collects favours, as we know from him gaining Aurons in return for a chance to take the Oromoa, which, let me reiterate, was more important to Crocodile to guard in a hidden vault than the armour of the most powerful mortal to ever exist, and he let that slip through his fingers in exchange for a favour from Auron. That should tell you how much he values Auron's skill set, and according to the first fortune you can unlock in the VIP room, it'll be another 15 years before the favour is repaid. Repaying the favour is also the only time that Auron will ever return south again, according to the ending sequence. Hopefully one day we'll find out what that favour turns out to be. He's also apparently pretty familiar with Colourgrave, as he advises Auron you won't find any colours she wants here. It was previously thought that Ren was somehow captured by Crocodile to act as his vault guard, perhaps while she was doing some investigative work on Lyrian, but then why would she do what he requests of her? She tries to kill Auron because that's what she's supposed to do, but if she were here against her will, then I don't know about you, but I'd let intruders take whatever they wanted. It seems far more likely that Crocodile had a deal of some kind, either with Ren or possibly with Colourgrave herself. He at least knows about the significance of colours, and somehow that Auron is collecting them for her. This connection does go a little bit further, but we're going to have to save that for another video discussing Crocodile's future plans. In the meantime, feel free to share your own theories as to who this man is, or was, or will be. I certainly think he's going to play a bigger role further down the line. Like, maybe he won't be as present in person, but I think at least his influence is going to be more important. But please let me know what you think, I'd love to take this discussion further. Until next time.